Hello and welcome to Saturday Morning Cartoons, the weekly podcast that revisits, reviews, and ridicules some of the world's weirdest animated series. I'll be your host, Dave Trumbore, and joining me today, I'm happy to say because he had a bit of a health scare earlier this week, DC area improv artist and recovering comedian, Sean Paul Ellis. You okay, Sean? Is there anything you want to get off your chest, bub?
David, I'm doing fantastic now. Thank you so much.
You sure? Do you want to share your life experience this week with the listeners?
I almost choked on a French fry, and I'm much better now.
Yeah, so we were all concerned, very concerned. His coworkers showed a lot of concern too.
By administering the Heimlich. So
yeah.
I do appreciate that. That was wonderful.
Yeah, he left out the fact that they put up all kinds of very funny posters around the office.
That is the most appropriate way to deal with me, is that if I have a life milestone or something significant that happens in my life, you should absolutely ridicule me at the first chance, because then I won't feel awkward or weird about it anymore. I will appreciate the concern that you are showing in that
exactly moment. So we decided to broadcast it to literally ones or tens of listeners. So we do
hopefully tens of 20s of 30s, which I'm excited about.
So we're happy that Sean's still here, and here as always the also appreciated Matt Barron. What's going on, bud? Oh Jesus!
The fucking fry! Oh God.
was that you upstaging him? I'm not sure. Did you power that one down? You good?
I got it.
Power that down. Awesome. This has nothing to do with what we're going to talk about today, but I just had to bring that up. Actually, I guess you could say Sean did kind of choke when he picked this week's. Cartoon.
I was just thinking, God, how could we work in a choke?
I'm starting low. I'm starting real easy here. We're gonna go for the good stuff later, but this week we're gonna talk Denver the Last Dinosaur. And it should be the last time that anyone ever talks about the show again. But we'll talk about it a little bit, and you can tell.
Here's my thing. Yeah. Is that let's just go on record right now saying that you and Matt do not like this show.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys could pick that up, but I'm not a real big fan of the show.
I want to go on record saying that I, Sean Ellis, love this show.
Explains a lot.
All right.
So is it an ironic love, or is it like an actual enjoyment of the show? I really hope it's ironic.
It's not ironic. I really did enjoy watching this show. I can understand that you guys have a difference of opinions on this.
Oh, yeah.
And I thank you for indulging me in watching the pilot episode. I'm curious to hear about your comments and your experiences with this, because I will say for a pilot, it's all over the place.
Yeah, and in all honesty, we have been covering a lot of just kind of like action, shoot 'em up, very, very limited genre of cartoons so far. Not granted, we're only 6 episodes in, but this is a good one for us to kind of get away from that and see kind of the broader spectrum of these cartoons. So let's get right into it. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a history of this show if you're not familiar with it. It was a 1988 series that ran for actually 52 episodes, so not 100% sure how they cranked all them out, because that averages out to one a week. So they must have
David, that's been every show that we've watched.
I know,
so
it's
far.
amazing.
They've done one season, 1,000 episodes.
Yeah, and we're not up to that level of production anymore. You're lucky if you get 20 out of a season, so it's crazy. It helps that this was a U.S. and a French production, so I'm sure they split the responsibilities somewhere. It's from a production company called World Events Productions, who was also responsible for Voltron. This was then later syndicated and actually ran until 1990. So even though it originally only ran in the year of 1988, calendar year 1988, it did run in syndication up through 1990. One of the reasons it ran for syndication is because it somehow managed a National Educational Association recommendation. Now, from what I've seen, the NEA isn't just some made-up, purchased rubber stamp organization. Maybe it was back in '88, because there is zero educational value to this show, which we will talk about. I do want to mention a couple things of the people behind the scenes. First of all, this was written and created by Peter Keefe, who also wrote and created Widget the World Watcher, which is another kind of obscure one that brought it back to the forefront of my memory when I was researching this show. So that's another one we might come to a little bit later. The voice acting on this one was, I won't say it was good, because that would be a lie, but they are...
I would say that the voice actors that are in this show are wonderful.
Yes, so the characters themselves are grating and irritating and make you want to turn it off after, 15 minutes at the most, if you can get through the theme song. However, the people behind the scenes that were doing the voices, very good. The one that voiced the title character, which is a dinosaur, so it's just a lot of weird creature sounds. By the 52nd episode, he actually can talk, which is even more disturbing. Voiced by Pat Fraley. He's done a ton of work since he's been in 1978, I believe. So he's done work on Turbo Teen, which we talked about, Brave Star, which I'm just dying to get to because that show is off the wall bananas. We've also got a couple people doing double duty. Sean, I think you had one or two.
So for there were four main characters, and so for Wally and Jeremy, they were both voiced by Adam Carl. And for Mario and Shades, they were both voiced by Cam Clark.
Yeah, so we'll get to those characters in a little bit. The other ones that are doing double duty were Kath Soucy, I think I'm saying her name right. She did the characters of Casey and Heather, which are pretty much the only two female characters on the show. She did a ton of work in the 90s with things like Dexter's Laboratory, Captain Planet, and a lot of things in between. Another one we want to mention is, you mentioned Cam Clark, right? So we definitely need to talk about Robert Paulson.
Oh my gosh, the best.
What was his name again?
He played Chet, as well as also, he was like one of the leaders of the group of bullies named Nick.
Yeah, but Matt, what was his name?
His name is Robert Paulson.
Thank you very much. Boy. I needed to get that in. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Matt, who's going to give you a brief synopsis on what the hell this show was about.
I'm going to say, though, that you guys did sneak in two Chuck Palahniuk references with a Fight Club, as well as also a choke.
Yeah. So we're. I got to look up the rest of his books, and I'll work them in.
I was going to say, so we can look forward to a lawsuit at the end of this episode.
Chuck listens to the show,
guys,
so
we're
hi,
a
Chuck.
Survivor.
Ugh. You're done. It's Baron's turn. You're done for a while. You're on timeout.
And Sean, if you could just sing a lullaby at the end of this.
Nicely done.
You two are little monsters, seriously.
Oh, God.
Fuck, we are going to be so broke. Okay. But, okay, so I don't usually do this, but I just want to read the actual Wikipedia first paragraph of the plot here because it's hilarious. So this is verbatim from Wikipedia. The show revolves around the adventures of Denver, the last dinosaur, a Corythosaurus, who released from his egg by a group of multicultural modern teens, California teens actually.
Very important.
Jeremy, Mario, Shades, Wally, Casey, along with tag-along older sister Heather. The kids taught Denver the finer points of skateboarding and other pastimes while protecting him from concert promoter Morton Fizback, who wanted to use the dinosaur to make money.
Yeah, pretty much all you need to know right there. The pilot definitely sets all that stuff up. All the other episodes that kind of function in between are just, it's very episodic. It's basically just the kids palling around Scooby-Doo style with this dinosaur. But now we're going to get into a little bit of the style and the characters themselves. Let's talk style first. I know we mentioned characters, but just to give people an idea of kind of the animation style that this is, since we've done a lot of very anime-centric kind of looking things. This is way more cartoonish. What would you guys kind of describe this as? To me, it was like Magic School Bus, Scooby-Doo, kind of.
You know, for me, it was kind of halfway between what Captain Planet was and also Botsmaster. If you look at the color scheme of it, I mean, it was really, about the same, that whole sort of 80s, everything is super neon, but at the same time, when you kind of look at the Captain Planet animation scheme, I mean, it's really almost about the same.
Yeah, there's a lot of just like bold primary colors. The main characters wear the exact same thing for 52 episodes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like the Doug Funny uniform, Exactly.
I mean, did you guys notice that was it Jeremy, like the blonde Californian kid of the pack, always wore a sweatshirt that had the number 1 on it, and then his bike also had a number 1 on it with the exact same color scheme?
I did. I'm sad that I did, but I did.
I loved it. I loved everything about it.
It's the only outfit and bike that he owned, too. That was it.
Well, I'm also convinced that Shades was actually blind. So.
He could have been. He could have been. Before we get to the characters, though, anything else on like animation style or tone or like comparable shows that you guys? Because when Sean brought this up, I was trying to think like, man, I was having a hard time really thinking of shows that were not really action oriented. They were more either like mystery or more friendship or even educational. Now, I don't consider this an educational show. I mean, especially compared to like Magic School Bus or anything like that. I do not consider it an educational show, and we can talk about that in a bit. But I was having a really hard time thinking of other things that were kind of in this vein. This thing kind of came about because of the boom of people being interested in dinosaurs, because Land Before Time had just come out before this.
Right.
So it's got a little bit of a similarity to that too. It's weird because like Denver's a very cartoonish dinosaur, but they do flash back to prehistoric times where it's more realistic looking dinosaurs, not necessarily hyper realistic, but more realistic, kind of like Dino Riders style.
I mean, just to segue into the character
Sure.
section of this, like let's
get
be
to it.
honest.
Yeah.
Denver's not really like Denver's kind of like a prehistoric dog.
Yeah.
He's not really like a dinosaur.
He's like
I mean,
what was the one from the Flintstones? What was his name? Shit, I can't think of his
my-
name.
oh
Was
my
it Dino?
gosh.
Was it just Dino?
Dino, yes,
yeah.
it was Dino.
Basically a green
Wow.
Dino. Yeah.
He's basically a green Dino, and and here's the thing that makes Denver so great in my mind is that, like, he's hip to all pop culture references that are going on present day.
Instantaneously.
I mean, like, the second they mention football, like, Denver's just like, oh, I'm a linebacker. Like, I know what football is. Like, the second they put a guitar in his hand, he is what Bobby Fischer is to chess. He is what a dinosaur is to rock
What a
music.
great
He's
description.
amazing. I mean, it's just. I
Yeah,
love
so he's mildly autistic.
I could see that actually. Yeah.
I don't. I mean, it doesn't bother. Like, whatever he is, and this is why I love the show, is that he is a fun-loving, like, he listens to every character that's on there, and whatever is going on with them, like, he responds, and he picks up and supports them in that idea that they're talking about football, if they want to ride skateboards, like, it doesn't matter. Denver's down for whatever.
I will say this.
And I
Yeah, go ahead, finish up.
Well, I think that that's the best thing, is that, like, for this group of 4 kids that, like, are, I don't want to say that they're social outcasts, but, like, they're being bullied by this other group of kids, like, pretty regularly in the pilot.
Right.
Like, it happens, like, 2-3 times.
A lot of things
like,
happen 2 or 3 times in the pilot because
Oh
they
my
just
God, so
recycle
many
it
things.
over and over
And
over.
I will. I mean, obviously, I'm going to go on record saying that, like, this pilot is, again, all over the
Yep.
place, and it's a little bit crazy. But I mean, think about it. Like, I keep thinking about it from this, and I know that you hit on, like, the point about friendship, but I mean, he really strengthens the friendship between these 4 boys that are just like, they're just trying to have a good time. Like, they're just trying to have a good time and relax and enjoy and bike and skateboard and hang out. And Denver is just like, I'm going to be the glue that, like, keeps you guys together forever.
Yeah, and
I think that that's beautiful. I think that that's beautiful.
And he's actually the least irritating character probably on the show. I don't know, Matt, maybe you feel differently about that, but yeah.
I really do. And, I have to say, going back to the things that happened 2 or 3 times, I had to turn this off about 2 or 3
it's
times in
tough.
the hour-long pilot. So I have to tell you that I watched it in about 15-minute chunks over the course of about 2.5 weeks.
Yeah,
so.
no reason for that thing to be an hour. No idea why they did that. But let's give you guys a little bit of background on the other characters besides Denver. I want to talk about the narrator really quick because I think she only shows up for the pilot to kind of like
Yes.
walk the idiot kids through what's going on the show. Probably the most irritating part of the entire pilot. I had a really tough time with that.
I kind of got annoyed by it too, and I see why, because I mean there was so much that was going on in this pilot. I mean, I think if we had to, like, sketch the main overview, it's the boys find a dinosaur,
Check.
a concert promoter tries to steal the dinosaur.
Check.
All right, the dinosaur gets sold to a lab, like a university lab, where a professor tries to perform, like, experiments on them, or on the dinosaur.
Yeah.
Denver escapes. They all hang out.
It's basically, boiling it down even further, it's discovery, capture, rescue. Capture, rescue, capture, rescue. That's pretty much the hour how that goes. But let's talk about some of the other characters here. So we've got Jeremy, who's probably the only smart one outside of Denver, this prehistoric dinosaur that's been loosed upon the contemporary world. Jeremy, at the outset, he's like studying his prehistory. He's studying dinosaurs at the museum. His friends don't give a shit.
Yeah,
they just
but
want to go party.
let me bust in real
Yeah,
quick because when they're at the museum and they see those bones right away, and he's like, "Those bones are thousands of years old," and he says he's studying for it, and I was like, while this test is not going to work out for him.
Yeah, step one, why I didn't understand why this was approved by the NEA. Because it's like, technically, yes, they are thousands of years old. Many, many thousands. You could also say they are a couple years old. And be,
yeah, if he had said thousands and thousands of years old, I would have gone for that. But when he just stopped at thousands, I was like, oh boy, we've got a creation.
Yeah, if he would have said these are literally days old, he was still technically right, but not very accurate.
If he had said they were hours or minutes old, he still would have technically been right.
So step one for the NEA just kind of fallen a little short.
Just fact check.
And now keep in mind that this kid, this blonde mulleted sweater jersey, jeans with knee pads wearing kid, is the leader of this group, and he's the smartest one. So that's our baseline here.
I believe what we had on our hands there was a young MacGyver.
I could see that, or a young Michael Bay, one way or the other.
Yeah, but also on the other hand, if you've ever been to Los Angeles, Dave, I know you lived there for about a year. I've been there literally once. Sean, I know you've visited, but if you've ever been to the La Brea Tar Pits, it's nothing like they depicted.
Wait,
in the
you mean they don't have like a boarded off section that says "Please keep out" with like an open door that kids can just crawl in and out of? They don't have?
No, I know that those exist in many other places in Los Angeles,
where you will not
at the La Brea Tar Pits.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's talk about some of these other goofballs here. So now, since Mario and Shades are voiced by the same person, let's try to distinguish them here. Should be pretty easy, especially with Shades.
It should be super easy. All right, Mario is African American. Shades is, I want to assume, like Latino, Mexican American.
I mean, sure. I guess we can go with that.
I'm trying to separate them. Like, Mario has a flat top, all right, and Shades has like shaggy hair and a pair of sunglasses.
Yeah, the difficult thing was because since the same guy voiced them, one was kind of like that. Yo, bro, like let's just go skate, like ditch school.
He was Keanu Reeves.
He was Keanu Reeves.
Like,
or I was going to say it's a very close Spicoli.
Ooh, okay.
Well, now that's Shades you're talking, right?
No, that's exactly. Mario. That's Mario.
Oh, that's Mario. Okay, all right.
Yeah, Mario was much closer to Spicoli, but Shades, I really also got the Mexican thing, but I was just like, if I call Shades Mexican,
well,
is this good?
Here's what I have in my notes, and this is terrible, but I will admit it. I have Shades, wears sunglasses, also not that smart, and then in parentheses and quotations, because I felt the need to separate it from the other, ethnic is what I wrote down. So don't feel too bad because I'm awful. But that's how.
Oh, I love that Mario. I mean, in addition, just oh god, like he rhymes most of the things that like happen to him, and so there's that one scene where when he's referring to the bullies, and he's like, "They're gonna be sorry-o when they mess with Mario." I'm like, oh my god, how many
I wrote that down.
Rhyming schemes are they gonna look for?
Well, he's also got terrible things like there's one episode, I don't know if you guys watched it, where Denver eats far too many potato chips, and they told him not to. And this is the lesson that he learns. And Mario goes, "Whoa, I'd say that's a case of indigestion." And that was done. That was it. That's when I sent you a very angry text, I think.
Wow. I wonder what Mario would have said when they saw Denver sharding after the
yeah, they were all
extreme intake.
They were all Olestra-laden potato chips, the Olean potatoes. So okay, let's finish up.
Wally.
Well, let's finish up these characters. Yeah, so we got Wally. He's the fat ginger kid with a weird burqa kind of hat scarf thing. I don't really know what his deal is.
It's like a bomber. It's like one of those like hunting bombers that like has like the
in
flaps over
California.
the ears.
Yeah, in California.
I was gonna say I thought you meant like suicide bomber, and I was like, Jesus, Sean.
I don't think Wally ever went quite that far.
You don't know. Maybe Wally joins up with Al Qaeda.
It's possible. We don't know what happened to him after 1990. He could have taken a dark path.
That could have been episode 53.
But that's Wally. He's the fat little ginger kid. He's basically like
could have been episode 9/11.
Oh,
Jesus.
He's basically an animal lover, so he brings Denver in and kind of like keeps him in his house for a little while. And then you've got Heather, who's Wally's older sister, and she doesn't seem all that fazed by the fact that he's keeping a dinosaur in their garage. She's more upset that he brought another pet home than the fact that it's a prehistoric dinosaur in the contemporary world. So that was a little strange.
She's really unfazed by this. Like it's kind of weird. Like I think her line was just like, "Mom told you not to bring strays home," and I was like,
she didn't specify what kind, what species. She said no strays.
this is like an amazing piece of history. Why don't you calm down,
No
lady?
one seems phased. Even Fizzback, who's the villain in this thing for only the hour because he eventually gets shipped off to Australia. Even Fizzback is just basically like, don't care that it's a dinosaur. I just want to put it in my rock and roll show for one night only.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's it. So, do you want to get into the plots now? I think we kind of covered most of the main characters here.
Well, there's one of them, which is Casey, which she's she's like a mechanic.
Yeah, she's a tomboy.
A machine shop. Yeah, and she's got like the highest pitched, like squealing kind of like voice possible.
But it's still like a New York accent though, which is the weird thing.
Yeah, and I don't get it. It was Casey really comes in just to like help them out, like whenever there seems to be a problem, and then she just moves on and she's just kind of forgettable.
Yeah, she'll come up, she pops up later on, and there's like lessons to be learned, because like the boys are ignoring Casey again, but they seem to forget that over and over again, so I don't know what the deal with that is, but yeah, speaking of plots, let's get into the pilot, because someone decided that it needed to be an hour, even though, like we said before, they recycle the exact same actions over and over and over again. So, we already mentioned that Jeremy's at the beginning, he's trying to study, because he's obviously an idiot. He's trying to study these dinosaurs. The other guys, they don't really care. They just want to go out and they want to ride bikes, and they want to skateboard like the Californians do.
I mean, again, like, you know, I'm gonna harp on the friendship angle for this a lot. Is, you know, it's just like Jeremy had to study, and everybody was like, you know what, we'll come and we'll hang out with you, man. Like, we'll be supportive of the fact that like you're trying to learn some stuff.
Yeah, fair enough. It lasts for about 30 seconds.
You jerks.
No, but I mean,
I want to get off of these tough LA streets, you know, make it into USC.
I'll tell you what, though, LA in this show looks immaculate, because it's only ever like these kids really that are kind of putzing around. There's the occasional teacher, you know, in a classroom or whatever, or there's the occasional like ice cream man that's driving down the street, but for the most part, as quote unquote multicultural as they make the kids, everybody else walking around is just kind of like a white adult that is clueless and doesn't seem to notice this dinosaur. Now we should talk about how they actually find Denver.
Well, I was going to say just real quick, like when they do the panning from left to right shot of LA, they really only feature the Tower Records building, and then also the Chateau, and that's about it.
Yeah, they briefly show like the Hollywood sign, just to be like, oh, this is where we are, and then never show it again. Yeah.
Just in case you forgot in the last 15 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. And then the narrator reminds you, so you know that's helpful too. So how do these guys? Yeah, how do they actually stumble across?
They leave the museum. They're outside, and Nick and these other bullies confront them and start a scuffle, which the boys enact Plan A, which is to throw the skateboard underneath Nick's foot and like basically just drop him on his butt, and then they run away. Like they proceed to run away.
Yeah, sacrificial skateboard. Yep.
So like they manage to get out of there, and they hide in this like construction site in the interim. And while they're there, I believe it was Shades wanted to try to pull off this jump.
I thought it was Mario, but
was it Mario?
Neither of them really matter.
Yeah. No, it was Mario.
It was Mario.
So Mario tries to pull off this
jump.
Yeah, because he's
tries to pull off this sweet trick. All right.
On Jeremy's bike now.
On Jeremy's bike, but it's Jeremy's new bike.
Yep.
Oh, problem.
His matching bike.
You got tar on my bike.
Oh man, I can't believe I'm defending this in show.
Yep. It's the dawning realization is starting to hit him right now.
Mario jumps this wicked gap on his sweet ride, on Jeremy's sweet ride, and like falls onto an egg, which they immediately identify as being like a prehistoric tar egg.
Yeah.
After like 3 seconds, they're just like, "Oh yeah, this is what it is."
That was from Jeremy's learning. Yeah, it was from his
school
studies.
And here's the best part: is that like tar egg was completely excavated around it, so you can tell they've been using like heavy excavation tools. Those don't break the egg. 5-pound bike falls on the egg, thing shatters like a Fabergé egg. Like it's hilarious.
Well, what's inside that egg?
Oh, inside that egg is everybody's best friend, Denver, the last dinosaur.
Oh, he's a little ball of joy.
And so, like, immediately, these boys are unfazed by the fact that this is like a dinosaur. They are just like, you look like a rad friend, and I want to hang out with you, which I love.
Right.
I love. Again, like it just seems so cool that they're just so accepting of it. They're just like, oh, you're a dinosaur, sweet. Like, and they don't care, and they roll around and kind of cuddle with him in like a creepy kind of way.
Yeah, in the tar egg, just kind of
in the tar egg,
yeah.
and so that's regrettable.
Now this isn't just an ordinary tar egg, which I guess we'll get to in a second. But yeah,
right.
What are we gonna say?
So they are trying to figure out what they should call this guy, and they are like they're saying names,
right?
And Denver is like making this like sour stink eye face at them, like
yeah. Well, that's actually really, really good. That's exactly what Denver sounds like. So he just makes kind of like these baby noises, and he can automatically communicate fresh out of the egg. So he understands exactly what they're saying in English. So yeah.
So Denver's hip to them right away, which I love, because like, you know what, honestly, like if there had to be a period of time in the show where like you had to teach Denver like what language was and you had to educate him about this stuff, like you would hate it even more.
And
like,
it definitely would have earned that NEA stamp, but what are you gonna do? Yeah.
So they look at a passing bus, and Shades sees an advertisement for like skiing in Denver, Colorado.
Right.
And he's just like, oh, we should just name him Denver. And then Denver's like, oh, and he gets like super excited about it. And so they just call him Denver from there on out.
I just want you to finish the rest of this podcast between Mario/Shades and Denver voices.
I'm going to do all of them.
Because that, so dear listeners, if that's irritating you, that's what this entire show is. This entire show is that. It's just terrible, terrible voices and accents and awful dialogue, and then just weird, squeaky, sometimes erotic noises coming from Denver. And if you just walk into a room and hear Denver making his noises, you don't know what that person is watching on the computer, because sometimes it's very just like it's very awkward.
That was a good Denver as well.
It's tough to explain, to the kids.
So they bring him back to Wally's place. And while they're like in transit, they get spotted by Morton Fizback.
Morton Fizback.
Oh, that's a great Morton Fizback right there. And he just like, he is evidently the world's like best concert promoter.
Sure, yeah. Or at
He's
least
like
LA's, which is good enough.
Self-proclaimed like world's greatest concert promoter. And like he wants to be able to put on this like big rock show that's like with dinosaurs anyway.
Yeah, and like cave people in the band and like
yeah. And so he's like looking for. So he's in the museum trying to purchase.
Oh, that's right. I forgot he tried to buy like a skeleton. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't actually think that was I think it was a library, and I think that the curator that was there, or the librarian, says that it was on loan from the museum.
Oh, I see.
And so what was happening was that so that makes so a little bit of explanation.
Well, I love how much he offered the guy for it. He's like, I'm a well-known rock show producer, and I'll make it worth your while if you sell me this dinosaur skeleton.
Oh God, your car.
Also,
it's pretty close.
Exactly. I was going to say also, like, here's the thing: if you're an '80s concert promoter, also the world's greatest '80s concert promoter, something tells me you wouldn't really be paying for things so much as just throwing cocaine at people.
Maybe that was the other side of the offer, because he's like, I'll give you $50. $50.
I'll give you. I'll even go as high as.
I'll give you literally this dinosaur's weight in cocaine.
That was the other side of the offer. Yeah.
You know, if you're reaching to make a concert happen with dinosaurs or like skeletons, it's like you must be really scraping the bottom of the barrel. Like Motley Crue must have moved on. You know, like fucking. It was just ridiculous. Like the world's greatest concert promoter is trying to buy skeletons and like promote dinosaurs.
From a fucking library, not even the museum.
Duran with dinosaurs.
With dinosaurs. Ugh.
God. All right.
Now what he should have been doing.
Promote the Jurassic album.
Terrible. What he should have been doing is going after that magic tar, because that tar egg is not just holding Denver together somehow in suspended animation for 65 million years.
Like,
it's also got crazy powers. Yeah.
They bring him back to Wally's place.
Right.
And they're all just like, oh, we wish we knew what your time was like, Denver. And Denver's obviously, like, he's got a backpack at this time. I don't know how he got a backpack.
I think they just slung it on him. Did he have his shades and his coat and everything at this point, or not yet?
No, not yet. Okay. Not yet. I want to... Oh, I can't wait to talk about the shades. I really can't. Good. I really can't. Because I just want to get into this, is that Denver was, like, the first, like, deal with it meme. Like, if anybody's familiar with, like, like any like type of meme that's out there that where like a character just puts sunglasses on and just like
just gives you that winky
like,
face, says deal with
just
it.
as like a common like response to like somebody's disapproval, you're like, you know what, deal with it.
And Sean
like,
sent this to me at least 5 times as I expressed my displeasure with this episode.
Every time Dave sent me a terrible message, just like, I hate you and I hate the fact that you picked this stupid show and I don't want to talk about it and I hate your face, and I would just send back a Denver with those purple sunglasses and it just said, deal with it.
And it made me laugh, but in a rage at the same time, so it was great. So magic tar.
So they touch this magic tar that like Denver's just carrying around in his backpack, and like it transports them back to this magical time. So here's the thing that I'm trying to figure out is that they find this dinosaur, they bring him to Wally's place. Did they all get stoned together for the first time?
Must have. There's no other actual like logical explanation for it, especially the magic tar. It's got to be.
I mean, it makes no, in the existence of tar everywhere, there has never been magic tar. And then Denver breaks out of this like egg and is just like, guys, I get this tar that's gonna get you stoned.
The first taste is free.
As soon as I saw that and like they were touching the magic tar, I was like, you think that's Mexican black tar?
Oh God.
Yeah, it's definitely some hallucinogenic.
Because that dinosaur just got like 8 kids addicted to Mexican black tar.
Yeah, because it keeps coming back. They get the little kid involved with it. They get Casey hooked on it. They keep touching it and going back. Yeah.
Tell you what, this first time I'll let you touch it. Just get a taste.
First taste
Next
is
time
free.
you're gonna have to pay me $60.
That's right, or I'll take your knees. I'll send Morton Fizback after you.
Morton Fizback.
So bringing it back to him. Now the guys got their magic tar. They kind of get to see where Denver came from. They get to hang out with Denver. Everybody's feeling groovy. Everybody's feeling good. I think now's the time.
Here's the best part about that flashback, though. It's like the biggest one-off for that episode. It happens for like 3 seconds. They're like, and we see the Stegosaurus.
Yeah, with a narration
weighs over 16 tons. A brain as small as a pea.
NEA stamp.
And like NEA is just like boom,
just stamping
approved.
it. Yep.
Love it.
As soon as I heard that, I was like, wow, they are getting, the Department of Education money is just flowing in.
They're getting their
pteranodon.
They're getting their facts from like those flashcards. You remember those flashcards that you just find with a dinosaur on one page and like 3 facts on the back? That's where they're getting their information. Wherever the hell those flashcards came from. So yeah, rubber stamp that bitch.
So
now
they touch this egg and they realize that like suddenly they can't keep the dinosaur in the house. So the most logical place to put him is the school, where people are located.
Well, I mean,
not just a couple people, literally
hundreds of thousands.
Hundreds of thousands of people.
Now, granted, to their credit, though, they did choose the gym that was under construction because that's convenient, and they did lay down one little mattress pad for him and gave him a sandwich because that's probably what dinosaurs eat. Sandwiches.
That moment was so sad.
So sweet.
When they left him.
Yeah.
They're like all by himself, and they were just like, "Hey, Denver, we gotta go home. It's almost dinner time." And like they just left him.
My mom's making chicken and stovetop.
She's making hamburger helper, and I helped. God damn it! I would love to work at
I was going to say that's shaking. That's shaking.
Oh wait, it was shake and bake. Fuck, am I missing up my terrible boxed meals?
Yeah, that's right. Hey, don't worry. Some of us ate better than others.
It was all that. Was that magic tar?
I've been touching. Brag about it, Dave. Go ahead.
I've been touching too much magic tar, dude.
And Dave, the chicken's not the only thing that's baked.
Oh, jeez. They should revisit Denver the Last Dinosaur
crushed in '88.
In mid-teens.
That would have absolutely crushed in 1988.
They should do a stoner revival of Denver the Last Dinosaur.
So just a reboot?
Yeah.
Reboot.
So yeah, okay. So now Denver's been abandoned by his newfound friends. Denver's not gonna just sit around and wait. What's he gonna do? He's gonna go explore.
So he explores a little bit,
and that's not good for him because what happens?
Well, what happens is like flash forward to like the next day, like he stays in the gym all night, and then the next day he kind of like ventures out like while the kids are in class and like surprises Wally like outside.
Yeah, and at that I need to point out at that moment I was so pissed at this show that I was keeping a laugh counter. So I watched the pilot, which is an hour, and I watched 3 additional episodes. So we're totaling probably about 2 hours worth of Denver the Last Dinosaur. 4 times. 4 total times that I laughed. The first one was when Wally's looking outside. His teacher is asking him, Wally, what's the capital of France? And Denver's head pops up in the window, and he just screams, Denver! And then the whole classroom laughs at him. That's the first time that I laughed in this show. And we're probably about 20 minutes in at this point. And they get a lot of mileage out of that name, too. A lot of mileage out of that name.
Oh, God.
Yeah. The Colorado tourism market must have just soared during 1988 after that show. So.
Yeah.
Why not? Why not?
So good. I do love. Okay, so at one point they disguise him. Now we can talk about your magic sunglasses here. They do try to disguise him and like get him out and walk him around, right?
Well, they disguise him in order to bring him to the gymnasium.
Okay, all right. So he's originally in God, what is he wearing? He's got his sunglasses.
He's dressed like a homeless person.
He's got a massive trench coat on that like goes out to his tail and back. They run into like their old neighbor lady, and here was my. This didn't make me laugh; it made me cringe. But they explain that he's green because he is from Greenland.
From Greenland,
and he's Greenlandish.
I loved it. I laughed so hard. I actually like when they were doing this, just like when Mario was, or when Shades was just like, oh yeah, he's got a greenish tint because he's from, and I kid you not, I screamed at my iPad, don't you say Greenland?
Don't you say Mario?
Greenland. I went, oh my god! I lost my mind.
Stamped by the NEA, I will remind you.
Oh my
Stamped by the NEA. All right, we're getting a little short on time, so I want to make sure we get through the pilot here. So now some bad stuff happens to Denver. Fizzback gets his grubby little claws on him, which really doesn't seem all that bad for Denver, to be honest with you. He just gets he gets moved to another place. They plop him in the middle of a rock show. He's got adoring fans because they see a dinosaur picture on a poster and they automatically know who he is, start chanting his name, and he knows how to play a guitar. It's a pretty sweet deal, actually.
That dinosaur has more fans in 10 seconds than this podcast does for 6 weeks.
Why you gotta hurt my feelings like that? What did I ever do to you, buddy?
Sean,
I'm my own feelings on this.
I have hoped all my hopes
all
and
of
dreams.
Our collective feelings.
I've hooked all of my hopes and dreams to this podcast, so thank you, Sean. Thank you.
The shooting
You guys are
star
welcome.
right now of Denver the Last Dinosaur. So yeah, he's an automatic star.
Fizzback gets paranoid that these kids are going to rat him out, and then he's going to go to jail. And like
his
Morton
logic,
goes,
he must be.
He just goes, "Oh, I can't get in trouble with the law again." Was he Rodney Dangerfield? Was
he seemed a lot like
every
whoever did his
moment.
voice had to be Rodney Dangerfield, like just drawing from.
Also, when I heard that, I was like, "Ooh, 3 strikes started early in California."
Yeah.
So.
Well, for Morton Fizzback, they did. I would love to hear like his backstory and how he ended up with only $50 to spend on a dinosaur skeleton for a rock promotion. God. Here's the crazy thing: successful.
If I go back to jail one more time, they're gonna call me Morton Fizzbitch.
Oh, Fizzbitch.
Oh boy.
He is. So basically, at this point, he has managed to outwit these idiot kids, so good for him. He's got a sold-out concert, a one night only. Why you make it one night only, I don't know. You've got a live dinosaur playing a fucking guitar at a rock concert. He's like, nope, too much liability. I'm just going to sell it off and wash my hands of this. So, not the brightest guy, probably, to begin with. He was making good money for one night, and then he got rid of it. So what does he do with Denver now? What's the best thing to do?
Sells Denver to Professor
Funt. Which, what a name.
Yeah,
Professor
I know.
Funt.
It's hard to say with a straight face, ever.
So Baron mentioned at the beginning of the show that Denver is actually a Corythosaurus or Corythosaurus, I don't know how you say it, which makes
Corythosaurus.
Yeah, which makes sense when you actually look up Denver and a Corythosaurus. However, Dr. Funt, apparently not the best scientist, because he goes through all these books, prehistoric books, can't figure out what Denver is, so he dubs him a Funtosaurus, after his own name, Funtosaurus.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So then at this point, we're like, well, what the hell? We're halfway through. We might as well have the narrator come in, introduce a couple more random characters that just show up.
Jesus.
This is the second time that I laughed, but for a reason that was not intentional. They did not intend this to be a laugh.
What was the reason?
Okay, so at this point, Denver's in a cage. Or Professor Funt, whatever his name is running off to his colleagues, and he's like, I've made the discovery of a lifetime. I'm going to be rich and famous, and you're all going to rue the day, whatever. So he's trying to get them back to the lab to show them. Meanwhile, random Asian grandfather and his daughter, so Professor Chin and his daughter wander in, make friends with Denver because he's a sweet dinosaur, and they decide to let him go. Now, the little girl doesn't want to let him go because she looks like her little stuffed animal and she wants to keep him around. The grandfather says to her, this is great,
I love this.
He says, honey, sometimes for the things that we love, we have to let them go. And he's like, do you understand? She just goes, nope.
No.
And I lost it. Nope. And then they just let him go anyway. Oh, it was so good.
Seriously, I paused because I was laugh crying at that moment. Like, I had to rewind just to be like, did she just say no?
Nope.
And then a second, she's like, do you understand, young one? She's like, nope.
Yeah, she's like the world's worst
nope.
apprentice. Just like, we'll give her a couple of years. Well, let's let this dino go. So now, just to recap, everybody, we've had discovery, capture, sort of rescue. So what does that lead us back around to?
Capture again.
Yeah, so now they just rehash this kind of plot over and over again.
So rescue again from Professor Chan.
So, yeah, exactly. So now Fizback and Funt, which sounds like a law firm, team up to recapture Denver kind of out in the wild. So let's bring this.
It's really amazing because I think Fizback and Funt are the people who are representing Fizback in his concert
his
problems,
underhanded dealings.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't think we'll get to this one today. So I want to let you know the last episode. Oh man, I can't remember the name of it. Some terrible pun on snow. He comes back in the last episode, and he and Dr. Funt, Professor Funt, make a weather seeding, like a cloud seeding machine, to make it snow in L.A. Why? Not because he's like Doc Terror or anything like that. Because he wants to sell overpriced snow shovels to the people of Los Angeles. In 52 episodes, this is as far as his business ambition has reached at this point.
You know what, Dave? You do what you know.
Oh my
and
God.
If he knows snow shovels, you know what? I support
$100 a snow shovel.
I support that direction
Highway robbery.
for his business venture.
So I'm glad so what happens at the end of this pilot here? We'll wrap this up because we're getting short. They try to capture Denver again. The kids intervene. They actually end up crating. Fizback had a crate ready for Denver. They end up tossing him into the crate with his goons, and they ship him off to Australia.
How did they get him into the crate?
Well, go ahead. I'll let you do that because I don't remember all the nitty-gritty.
Because Denver gets on a skateboard and hits Fizback with his tail and sends all of them into the crate.
Physics at work.
Casey, young,
tomboy,
engineer, machinist, tomboy, Casey jumps up on top of the crate, and they're like, nail it shut.
Yep.
And she just does it.
Seal that fat bastard up.
She just does it. Like, what a psychopath that she's just like, I'm just going to nail these people inside this crate.
Stamped by the NEA. So
Stamp, seal, and deliver.
They send him off to Australia. I'm assuming he shows up at some time in the interim between the first and last episode, but there you have it. Now, Sean, I'll give you another chance here to bring home your friendship point, because there is another run-in between the two gangs, and Denver kind of overheard his own gang telling him, like, man, these guys are upset that they lost Denver. So go ahead and bring it home.
All right. Yeah. So Denver now is a free dinosaur, and he is attempting to, and they explain it that like most animals, like dinosaurs as well, they have the ability to kind of find their way back home. And so Denver finds his way back to the park where the four boys are playing basketball. And like whatever the amount of time is that has elapsed, maybe like 24 hours, these boys they're upset. They're upset about what's going on, and they're trying to move on with their lives, and they're trying to figure out and like cope with with the grief of like losing this dinosaur. And I think it was either Shades or Mario. It doesn't matter because they're both voiced by the same guy, and so it's almost indistinguishable. And so one of them says, one of the ethnic people in the show.
You were doing fine until you said that.
Shut up. So one of the ethnic people says, like, does it matter? They're just like, let's just move on with our lives. And Denver overhears it, and being the savvy English-speaking dinosaur that he will become,
a sensitive soul,
understands it and is upset.
He is, rightly so.
And Denver is just like, you know what? Like, I need some time to think, and I need some time to process this.
Not too much time, though, because...
pretty much, he needs like 15 seconds, because Nick and these other bullies appear, and they start harassing these boys, and they surround them, and they're getting ready to beat them up, and Denver shows up and saves them. And Denver is immediately just like, oh my gosh, like, you know, I wanted to save you guys. And the four boys, like Wally, Jeremy, Mario, and Shades, are just like, you're the best, Denver. We can't live without you.
And that's pretty much it. Iris out.
And I love it. And that's just, I mean, that's NEA stamped and approved.
So that's the pilot. I do want to give you guys, if you're interested in watching more of this show, that's the only nice way for me to put it. I had a tough time with it. If I maybe was watching it when I was like 5 when this came out, I might have been okay because it was kind of for like, definitely for a younger audience. So
well, how old were you in '88?
'88, I was 5.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think me and Baron were same age. So yeah, we might have watched it then, or even in early like syndication. So, but I wouldn't have watched it in like the mid '90s if it had come on because it wasn't like for our age range. I will give you a little bit of so another couple episodes. The next one was called In the Chips. All right, In the Chips. Jeremy is working.
This is the potato chip.
This is the potato chip one. Jeremy is working at a grocery store. They have some weird potato chip emergency. It is the biggest pile of fucking potato chips I've ever seen in my life because it's a 6-foot tall pile of potato chips that are just like in the warehouse that Jeremy has to clean up. So at the beginning, they're trying to feed Denver like a salad. He's turning his nose up at it. He doesn't want to eat it. He wants nothing to do with it. He will, however, eat an entire warehouse full of chips. Then they give him Alka-Seltzer at the end of the episode, and he's fine. That's all that happens in the entire show. And then Casey like takes this dream journey / maybe she actually went there because she fell asleep in the magic tar egg. Not making this up. She goes back, befriends a baby triceratops, and then falls through quicksand in order to come back to contemporary times. And the guys learn not to take her for granted. Those are the 2 lessons. Don't eat a lot of chips. Don't fall asleep in a magic tar egg. Pretty much it. Another episode called Video. That's how it's spelled.
That was the best.
Yeah,
ever.
The kids want to shoot like a music video, but they can't agree on what to do. So they all argue and they go their separate ways. Denver takes the video camera, and he managed to capture evidence of an illegal chop shop run by tow truckmen Otto and Wrecker.
Oh,
yeah,
boy.
So that's what that was. And let me check my laugh counter here. I think I missed 2. Oh, there was one where the scientist, Dr. Funt, checks Denver's reflexes, and Denver whacks him with his tail and sends him flying into a wall. That made me laugh.
You're up to 3 right now.
That's 3. So then the 4th one is during video. Mario, because they're all arguing about how to. Mario wants to do like a stunt thing, like an Evel Knievel kind of thing. Shades, I think, wants to do kind of like a Miami Vice kind of like detective kind of thing. It's all terrible. And then Mario says, "Whoa, this whole thing's getting overproduced, like too Hollywood." And I don't know why. I was probably delirious at that point. But I laughed. And that, my dear friends, is the 4 episodes I watched with my 4 total laughs. So I'm not going to recommend this one because it was irritating as hell. But I don't know. What do you guys say?
I've got to say I don't recommend this one at all. I mean, on one hand, it was kind of, ironic, and I knew how bad it was going into it because Dave, you watched it before me. But I've got to say, do something better with your life. Like, take up an aggressive drug habit or something because it's going to get you further than this episode.
Oh, my God.
Sean, how about you?
I'm going to negate everything that Matt just said.
Okay.
And I am going to say, do not pick up an aggressive drug habit. I'm going to say, do yourself a favor and watch the hour-long, realistically, it's like 45 minutes long pilot. And if you don't like the pilot, I would say just stop there.
That's enough. Fine. It's enough to reaffirm your friendship.
I would say it's enough to. But here's the thing: is that I'm having a hard. I was 8 when this came out, and I remember watching this. I don't remember if it was when I was 8 or 10 years old, but I did watch this on television at some point in time, and I remember being very excited about this, about the idea of a dinosaur who was just. He was hip and savvy and cool to everything that was going on. He loved ice cream. All right.
He can wear sunglasses and pass as a human. Yeah.
And you know what? And I think that the friendship factor that the bond he was able to strengthen between Wally, Jeremy, Mario, and Shades, I think is amazing. I think for a lot of cartoons that were around that time, that you didn't get something that was as like simplistic in terms of like its friendship vibe as Denver the Last Dinosaur. And so I enjoyed watching this for the nostalgia, and then separately because I mean there were a lot of elements that were like, I mean, the friendship and kind of like leaving Denver alone by himself and sort of like the loneliness that he felt. Like, I mean, there were some like stronger adult themes that were kind of under the surface for this plot, and maybe I'm reading too much into it.
I think you might be.
And I don't.
Yeah, you really
are.
are.
I don't care because you know what? I loved this show, and I really think that like if you can watch the pilot, we can be friends.
So
I'm throwing this out there to anybody. If you can watch the pilot and make it through the pilot, we can be friends.
I will say
if
this:
you love the pilot, you can easily be best friends.
Best friends. So Sean's impassioned plea to either be his friend/best friend or just another person who watched this show. If that has reached you, you can actually watch all the episodes of Denver the Last Dinosaur currently on, I believe, Hulu Plus. I don't know if they're on the regular Hulu or not, but I watched them on Hulu Plus. Also, and this is going to please the Denver the Last Dinosaur fans among you, it was announced...
I pre-ordered.
You pre-ordered it? So it was announced, I believe it was only about 2 weeks ago, it was announced that Denver the Last Dinosaur, the complete series, is coming to DVD Region 1 for the first time ever on September 16th of this year. So Sean pre-ordered it. We're going to have links and stuff up on the site. You can check it out there, or, do the Hulu Plus, check out the pilot. So anything else from this episode from you guys before we go on to our plugs and our contact info?
I'm looking forward to being able to do a dramatic reading of the Denver the Last Dinosaur theme song.
You will have that chance, and that is the last we will ever speak of this show ever again.
So excited.
Anything from you, Matt?
I just can't wait for that dramatic reading.
Okay. Well, before we get to that, we're going to do some plugs, and I actually want to start off today. Today I had the opportunity to participate in the Sorted Cinema podcast, and that's with the guys over at Sound On Sight. I did a review of a Danish thriller called Borgman. Very, very, very far removed from what we talk about on this show. But that's kind of the work I do for Collider.com, do some movie reviews and things like that. So the guys over at Sound On Sight were kind enough to extend an invitation to me. So I will provide a link when that show goes live. And actually one of the writers over there, I think it's their editor-in-chief, is actually going to be doing a piece on Gem and the Holograms, which we'll probably talk about at some point in the show coming up. So we might even have him on the show in the future. So it'd be good to get to know those guys, and maybe you'll hear them here soon. So like I said, you can find me at Collider.com. You can also find me over at on Twitter at DrClawMD. And now, Sean, do you have anything coming up?
Sure thing. I'm going to be doing a series of shows in July. They're actually going to be an improvised TED Talk that we are performing with my group Knox. And so they are going to start July 12th at 10 p.m. at Source Theater in Washington, D.C. You can find out more information about those shows at WashingtonImprovTheater.com. And there are like 6 shows total. I don't have the entire list, and so it doesn't matter anyway.
Well, we'll have that info up, yeah.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Sean Paul Ellis.
If you want to be his best friend.
If you want to be my best friend, just send me a message with a Denver-related deal with it meme, and I will just digitally high-five you from now until the end of days.
So that's worth it there, kids. Matt, anything coming up for you, and let the folks know where we can reach you?
Nothing coming up for me right now, but you can reach me at MattSF07 on Twitter.
Matt actually does have something coming up. He will let you know what you're going to be listening to next week, because
can't wait.
The next episode is going to feature
Darkwing Duck.
That's a good one, guys. It's a good one.
Let's get dangerous.
Oh, so good. Actually, speaking of that, so the guys on the Sound On Sight podcast, one of them asked me if we were doing Darkwing Duck, and I made his day, I think, when I told him we were doing it the very next show. So that should be something we're looking forward to. If you guys want to get caught up on our previous shows, this is our 6th show now. You can find us over at SaturdayMorningCartoons.com. That's morning with a U. You can also find us on Tumblr at SaturdayMorningCartoons.tumblr.com. And you can email us at SaturdayMorningCartoons@gmail.com if you want to either razz Sean for his love of Denver the Dinosaur or apply to be his best friend. Since I said
accepting applications.
He is accepting applications, and we're gonna leave you with a little. I don't know, Sean. How would you describe this thing you're about to do?
I'm gonna just do spoken word,
right.
because I just want people to know I love I love the theme music and songs.
They use it so much
from these cartoons, and I started watching this, and then I began singing this theme song just around the house, and then I started singing this around friends, and they began singing it this week, and they have cursed my name since then. But I'm just so glad that people know more about Denver the last time.
Well, Sean wants to bring it to you, so take it away.
Here we go. Denver, the last dinosaur. He's my friend, and a whole lot more. Denver, the last dinosaur, shows me a world I never saw before. Everywhere we go, we don't really care if people stop and stare at my pal Dino. Creating history through the rock and roll spotlight, we've got a friend who helps us. We can do all right. That's Denver, the last dinosaur. He's my friend and a whole lot more. Denver, the last dinosaur, shows me a world I never saw before. Ah, so beautiful.
Fiend. That was beautiful. Until next time, guys, thanks for listening. I guess you could say Sean did kind of choke when he picked this week's. Cartoon.
I was just thinking, God, how could we work in a choke?
I'm starting low. I'm starting real easy here. We're gonna go for the good stuff later, but this week we're gonna talk Denver the Last Dinosaur. And it should be the last time that anyone ever talks about the show again. But we'll talk about it a little bit, and you can tell.
Here's my thing. Yeah. Is that let's just go on record right now saying that you and Matt do not like this show.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys could pick that up, but I'm not a real big fan of the show.
I want to go on record saying that I, Sean Ellis, love this show.
Explains a lot.
All right. So
is it an ironic love, or is it like an actual enjoyment of the show? I really hope it's ironic.
It's not ironic. Like, I really did enjoy watching this show. I can understand that you guys have a difference of opinions on this.
Oh, yeah.
And I thank you for indulging me in watching the pilot episode. I'm curious to hear about your comments and your experiences with this, because I will say, for a pilot, it's all over the place.
Yeah, and in all honesty, we have been covering a lot of just kind of like action, shoot 'em up, very, very limited genre of cartoons so far. Not granted, we're only 6 episodes in, but this is a good one for us to kind of get away from that and see kind of the broader spectrum of these cartoons. So let's get right into it. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a history of the show if you're not familiar with it. It was a 1988 series that ran for actually 52 episodes. So not 100% sure how they cranked all them out, because that averages out to one a week. So they must have
David, that's been every show that we've watched.
I know,
so
it's
far.
amazing.
They've done like one season, 1,000 episodes.
Yeah, and we're not up to that level of production anymore. You're lucky if you get like 20 out of a season, so it's crazy. It helps that this was a US and a French production, so I'm sure they split the responsibilities somewhere. It's from a production company called World Events Productions.
Who wanted to use the dinosaur to make money.
Yeah, pretty much all you need to know right there. The pilot definitely sets all that stuff up. All the other episodes that kind of function in between are just, it's very episodic. It's basically just the kids palling around Scooby-Doo style with this dinosaur. But now we're going to get into a little bit of the style and the characters themselves. Let's talk style first. I know we mentioned characters, but just to give people an idea of kind of the animation style that this is, since we've done a lot of very anime-centric kind of looking things. This is way more cartoonish. What would you guys kind of describe this as? To me, it was like Magic School Bus, Scooby-Doo, kind of.
For me, it was kind of halfway between what Captain Planet was and also Botsmaster. If you look at the color scheme of it, I mean, it was really, about the same, that whole sort of 80s, everything is super neon, but at the same time, when you kind of look at the Captain Planet animation scheme, I mean, it's really almost about the same.
Yeah, there's a lot of just like bold primary colors. The main characters wear the exact same thing for 52 episodes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like the Doug Funny uniform, Exactly.
I mean, did you guys notice that was it Jeremy, like the blonde Californian kid of the pack, always wore a sweatshirt that had the number 1 on it, and then his bike also had a number 1 on it with the exact same color scheme?
I did. I'm sad that I did, but I
I
did.
loved it. I loved everything about it.
It's the only outfit and bike that he owned, too. That was it.
Well, I'm also convinced that Shades was actually blind. So.
He could have been. He could have been. Before we get to the characters, though, anything else on like animation style or tone or like comparable shows that you guys? Because when Sean brought this up, I was trying to think like, man, I was having a hard time really thinking of shows that were not really action oriented. They were more right. She did the characters of Casey and Heather, which are pretty much the only two female characters on the show. She did a ton of work in the 90s with things like Dexter's Laboratory, Captain Planet, and a lot of things in between. Another one we want to mention is, you mentioned Cam Clark, right? So we definitely need to talk about Robert Paulson.
Oh my gosh, the best.
What was his name again?
He played Chet, as well as also, he was like one of the leaders of the group of bullies named Nick.
Yeah, but Matt, what was his name?
His name is Robert Paulson.
Thank you very much. I need to get that in. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Matt, who's going to give you a brief synopsis on what the hell this show was about.
I'm going to say, though, that you guys did sneak in 2 Chuck Palahniuk references with a Fight Club, as well as also a choke.
Yeah. So we're. I got to look up
Good
the
on
rest
you.
of his rest of his books, and I'll work them in.
I was going to say, so we can look forward to a lawsuit at the end of this episode.
Chuck listens
It's
to
okay,
the show,
guys.
so
We're
hi,
a
Chuck.
survivor.
Ugh. You're done.
Ha.
It's Baron's turn. You're done for a
Yeah.
while. You're on timeout.
And Sean, if you could just sing a lullaby at the end of this.
Nicely
episode,
done.
You two are little
Okay.
monsters, seriously.
Oh God.
Fuck, we are going to be so broke. Okay. But, okay, so I don't usually do this, but I just want to read the actual Wikipedia first paragraph of the plot here because it's hilarious. So this is verbatim from Wikipedia. The show revolves around the adventures of Denver, the last dinosaur, a Corythosaurus, who released from his egg by a group of multicultural modern teens, California teens actually,
Very important. Yeah.
Jeremy, Mario, Shades, Wally, Casey, along with tag-along older sister Heather. The kids taught Denver the finer points of skateboarding and other pastimes while protecting him from concert promoter Morton Fizback.
Hello and welcome to Saturday Morning Cartoons, the weekly podcast that revisits, reviews, and ridicules some of the world's weirdest animated series. I'll be your host, Dave Trumbore, and joining me today, I'm happy to say because he had a bit of a health scare earlier this week, DC area improv artist and recovering comedian, Sean Paul Ellis. You okay, Sean? Is there anything you want to get off your chest, bub?
David, I'm doing fantastic now. Thank you so much.
You sure? Do you want to share your life experience this week with the listeners?
I almost choked on a French fry, and I'm much better now.
Yeah, so we were all concerned, very concerned. His coworkers showed a lot of concern too.
By administering the Heimlich. So
Yeah.
I do appreciate that. That was wonderful.
Yeah, he left out the fact that they put up all kinds of very funny posters around the office.
That is the most appropriate way to deal with me, is that if I have a life like milestone or like something significant that happens in my life, you should absolutely ridicule me at the first chance, because then I won't feel awkward or weird about it anymore. I will appreciate the concern that you are showing in that
Exactly.
moment.
So we decided to broadcast it to literally ones or tens of listeners. So we do.
Hopefully,
we do-
tens of 20s of 30s, which I'm excited about.
So we're happy that Sean's still here. And here, as always, the also appreciated Matt Barron. What's going on, bud? Oh, Jesus.
The fucking fry.
Was that you upstaging him? I'm not sure.
Did
Did you power that one down? You good?
I got it.
Power
I
that
got
down. Awesome. This has nothing to do with what we're going to talk about today, but I just had to bring that up. Actually, he was also responsible for Voltron. This was then later syndicated and actually ran until 1990. So even though it originally only ran in the year of 1988, calendar year 1988, it did run in syndication up through 1990. One of the reasons it ran for syndication is because it somehow managed a National Educational Association recommendation. Now, from what I've seen, the NEA isn't just some made-up, purchased rubber stamp organization. Maybe it was back in '88, because there is zero educational value to this show, which we will talk about. I do want to mention a couple things of the people behind the scenes. First of all, this was written and created by Peter Keefe, who also wrote and created Widget the World Watcher, which is another kind of obscure one that brought it back to the forefront of my memory when I was researching this show. So that's another one we might come to a little bit later. The voice acting on this one was, I won't say it was good because that would be a lie, but they are...
I would say that the voice actors that are in this show are wonderful.
Yes, so the characters themselves are grating and irritating and make you want to turn it off after, I don't know, 15 minutes at the most if you can get through the theme song. However, the people behind the scenes that were doing the voices, very good. The one that voiced the title character, which is a dinosaur, so it's just a lot of weird creature sounds. By the 52nd episode, he actually can talk, which is even more disturbing. Voiced by Pat Fraley. He's done a ton of work since he's been in 1978, I believe, so he's done work on Turbo Teen, which we talked about. Brave Star, which I'm just dying to get to because that show is off the wall bananas. We've also got a couple people doing double duty. Sean, I think you had one or two.
So there were four main characters, and so for Wally and Jeremy, they were both voiced by Adam Carl. And for Mario and Shades, they were both voiced by Cam Clark.
Yeah, so we'll get to those characters in a little bit. The other ones that are doing double duty were Kath Soucie, I think I'm saying her name